Hey fellow gamers, Chatty Sisa here. As mentioned before, there have been quite a few new updates for multiple games over the past couple of days, and one of those was also 007 First Light. And I'm not talking about the leaked spoilers here. We've got news on the game's localization, the cast and characters, including a pretty unexpected addition, some technical details, a bit from the developer's diary, and last but not least, the reveal of the title song. So let's have a look at all of the details. I'll start with a smaller update, but actually a very important one. And that is that 007 First Light will include Turkish subtitles and text at launch. At first glance, this might not sound like a big deal, but if you've been following gaming discussions online, then you'll know that Turkish players have been asking for proper localization on multiple games for years, and very consistently. There's a very good reason for that, because Turkey is actually a huge gaming market with tens of millions of active players. True, most of them are on mobile, but a very significant number are also on PC and consoles. To give you just a few numbers for a better understanding, the number of Turkish gamers is increasing. There were 36 million in 2021, 42 million in 2022 and 47 million in 2023, which represents 55% of Turkey's total population of about 85 million people. The Turkish game market reached $1.22 billion, ranking 18th globally. So when the developers add Turkish localization, it's not just a nice extra, but it's opening the game up to a massive audience that often gets overlooked. And in this case, IOI even confirmed that they reacted directly to community feedback, which is always a good sign. Let's move on to some news about the cast and characters. The studio released lately multiple episodes of their Developer's Diary series, and some of those were focusing specifically on Bond, on how the characters in the game are created and brought to life. What's interesting here is how much emphasis they're putting on making the characters feel human and believable, not just visually, but also through performance capture and storytelling. And as this is an origin story, the relationships between all these characters seem to play a much bigger role than a typical Bond story, so we'll see his character not just within the missions, but also how Bond will grow into the 007 role. The developers are using the surrounding characters to actually shape him as a person. For example, Q is acting more like a mentor figure, influencing Bond's style, his gadgets, and overall behavior. We're also getting a clearer look at the actors behind the characters, including Patrick Gibson as James Bond, alongside others like Moneypenny, Q, or Agent Droth. As per the studio, Bond will actually be much more talkative in this game. Since you're with him the entire time and not just in some cutscenes, there's a lot more dialogue and interaction compared to the movies, for example. Instead of the classic already established version of Bond, this one is much younger and still finding his place. So the tone is less cynical and more adventurous. He's stepping into the world of espionage for the first time, trying to prove himself, which gives the whole story a slightly different feel compared to what we're used to. At the same time, the studio promises to still keep the core traits, which is his confidence, resourcefulness, and that typical attitude of being very cool under pressure. As per their own words, they have just added a bit more idealism on top. It sounds like a good balance. This younger Bond version is still familiar, but not just a copy of what we've already seen previously in the movies, where he's already an established agent. Although a lot will depend on the writing here and whether the studio can pull it off in a believable manner. One thing the developers pointed out regarding this story is that it's being developed very closely together with the level design, meaning that missions are shaped by the story, but the story is also influenced by how the gameplay actually works. I believe a good example would be that you might approach a mission in different ways, sneaking around, talking your way through, or just going in guns blazing. And that can naturally affect how certain moments play out and affect then the further gameplay or story continuation. And then there's one addition to the cast that was quite the surprise. Superstar DJ Dimitri Vegas is joining the cast and will appear somewhere in the game during one of the missions. Now, whether that's going to be a short cameo or something more substantial remains to be seen, but it's definitely an interesting choice and a big surprise. If you're not familiar with Dimitri, he's a Belgian-Greek DJ, producer and actor, best known as one half of the duo Dimitri Vegas and Like Mike, together with his brother Michael. And the duo was ranking as the world's #1 DJs in the years 2015 and 2019. So this is clearly a move to bring in a bit of modern pop culture presence into the game. The next update was more of a technical one, and to put it simply, the game will launch with support for DLSS 4.5 and path tracing on PC, which basically means improved visuals and better performance, especially if you have newer hardware. DLSS helps to boost your frame rate without sacrificing too much image quality, and path tracing is a more advanced form of lighting that makes reflections, shadows and overall scenes look more realistic. So if you've got a strong PC, the game should look very impressive. And if you don't, there's also the option to stream it via cloud gaming, which is something more and more developers are supporting now for those players who have lower-end hardware, as long as you have a good internet connection. In this case, you can use the GeForce Now Premium membership, which IUI was linking at their page, and I'm copying the same in the description below for you. And the last two updates have been definitely a feast, both for the visual as well as the audio side. As for the visual, I honestly think this one will get a lot of attention. There's going to be a limited edition DualSense controller, designed specifically for 007 First Light. And I have to say, it actually looks really good. The design is clearly inspired by classic Bond elements with that golden finish and the 007 motif, so it fits perfectly with the whole theme of the franchise. It's one of those little things where you just briefly look at it and immediately recognize this as Bond related. The controller is going to be available only in limited quantities, so I wouldn't be surprised if it sells out pretty quickly. It is available at direct.playstation.com, and you can see more information about it on the screen. The price is about $85 and the pre-orders have started on the 17th of April. The release will be alongside the game then on the 27th of May. And finally, the big audio surprise, the introduction of the title song. IO Interactive revealed that the song is performed by Lana Del Rey and was composed together with David Arnold, who's actually returning back to the Bond franchise. And after listening to it, I have to say, this might be one of the best Bond-style songs we've had in quite a while. It has that very classic Bond feel. The moment you hear it, you immediately know what it is. There's the typical orchestral elements and the atmosphere with that slightly dramatic tone, but at the same time it still feels modern thanks to Lana's unique style. The studio specifically mentioned that the song is meant to reflect this younger Bond version. So it's not just a classic Bond theme, but something that's tied directly to his character and where he is at the beginning of his story. It's actually a really nice mix of old and new, something that reminds me of the classic Bond themes from the past decades and the movies, but it doesn't feel outdated. And that's not so easy to pull off. I'm linking the title song, of course, in the description below, and apologies for not playing it here, but I really don't want to be hit with a copyright claim on the channel. I can only say go and listen to it for yourself, it's really great. The song is already available also on streaming platforms, by the way. So overall, we've got quite a lot of updates for 007 First Light, which is why I've rather summarized them in a separate vid. Some smaller ones, some more interesting ones, and a few that definitely give us a better idea of what the game is going to feel like. But let me know what you think about everything we've seen and heard so far. Are you more interested in the story direction, the gameplay, or maybe also in that limited edition controller? And what about the title song? Have you had a chance to listen to it, and does it work for you as a Bond theme? Did you like it? Let me know in the comment section below, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. And if you like this vid and you've made it this far, don't forget to hit the like or subscribe button, it'll be very helpful for the channel and very much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, stay tuned and game on!